In the last years of the Soviet Union, a 29-year-old man named Vyacheslav worked as a prosecutor in Russia's Smolensk region. By his own admission, he used his position as a prosecutor to have power over the locals in the area he was living. Despite holding the position as a prosecutor and using this authority to manipulate the people around him, he was deeply bored and unsatisfied with the life he was living. Vyacheslav, a 29-year-old prosecutor in Russia's Smolensk region, was deeply bored and unsatisfied with his life. One day, after finally succumbing to the overwhelming boredom and dissatisfaction he was feeling, he grabbed a knife from the store he was in and began stabbing a bookkeeper to death. After killing the bookkeeper, he turned on the cashier of the store he was in and began stabbing her too. After she was dead, he stole the money from the cash register and left the store. He didn't actually need the money, but he would later say that he did need to feel something again, and that's why he killed those two people. Shortly after the murders, he was arrested and then sentenced to death by firing squad. On the day he was scheduled to be executed, a prison official came to his cell and told him his life would be spared because after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia had decided to instate a moratorium on all executions. Vyacheslav was so relieved that he became devoutly religious from that day forward. However, despite not being executed, he was still held accountable for his actions. He would now be transferred to Russia's notorious prison number OE-256-5, known locally as Patek Prison, located in the Vologda region. Patek Prison is known as Russia's Alcatraz because it is just a small prison on the Ogniny Ostrov Island in White Lake. Similar to Alcatraz, this prison was created to hold Russia's most dangerous criminals, and so far, not a single prisoner has managed to escape from its walls. In the words of one of the guards, if they dig, they hit water. If they swim, the guards will shoot them. In the summer, temperatures can reach 40 degrees, and the mosquitoes are atrocious. In the winter, the temperature will drop to -30, and the prison is surrounded by thousands of miles of snowdrifts on either side. On top of that, the entire island is covered in a barbed wire fence. To make things worse, each inmate is held in a two-man room for 22.5 hours per day, 365 days of the year. In the first decade they spend at the prison, inmates are allowed just 2 visits per year. After that, they get a total of 4 visits, but by that time, most of the prisoners have little to no contact with anyone outside of the prison because they're only allowed to receive 2 parcels per year. According to the prison psychologist, inmates will spend the first 9 months or so adapting to the new environment. After that, their personalities literally begin to deteriorate to the point of being psychologically destroyed. The single hour and a half the prisoners get to spend outside of their cell is spent in a small outdoor cage, just big enough to stand and pace back and forth. Once they return back to their cell, their toilet is just a metal bucket, and their bed is just a wooden plank. They also have limited access to other basic amenities, like showers, which is a major contributor to the fact that half the inmates in the prison have tuberculosis. If a prisoner dies in the prison, they are taken to a small graveyard nearby and buried in the presence of 1 or 2 of the guards and no one else. Even worse, if prisoners misbehave, they are sent to special punishment cells, which are just small dark rooms. For 15 days, they are kept in special punishment cells where they aren't allowed books, and during the day, their bed has to be stowed away, so they either have to stand or sit on a tiny wooden perch just a few inches wide. Now, whatever your thoughts are on the crimes that these men have committed, the 193 inmates that are serving life sentences at Patek Prison are truly living in one of the scariest places on earth. In the state of Iowa lies Maquoketa Cave State Park, renowned for its abundance of caves, surpassing all other state parks in the area. A network of trails seamlessly connects these caves, formations, and scenic overlooks, offering a distinctive hiking adventure for visitors. While most caves are easily accessible to all, a select few are advised only for experienced cavers. Many of these limestone caves once boasted impressive stalactites hanging from their ceilings and stalagmites rising from the ground. Unfortunately, over the years, souvenir hunters have gradually depleted these natural formations. One day, a group of friends visited the Maquoketa Caves. They decided to explore a small cave branching off from a larger one. The entrance was a narrow opening blocked by cobwebs, followed by a 15-meter belly crawl. The most experienced member led, swiftly navigating the opening. Inside, they found a small domed room, about 1.5 meters tall and 4 meters across. While waiting for the others, he explored the cave. Suddenly, he looked up and was horrified. Despite not fearing spiders, the sheer volume shocked him. Around 1,500 big spiders hung from the ceiling in this cramped room, surrounded by egg sacs. He summoned his friends and shared news of the spiders, cautioning them not to stand upon entering the room. Curiosity struck his companions as they bombarded him with questions about the creature's size, color, texture. He assured them they weren't massive, resembling black widows in appearance, but differing in color, being brown with lighter legs. One friend, noticing a detail, asked about a violin-shaped pattern on their backs, to which he confirmed its presence. As the last friend entered the room, his gaze swept the ceiling, shuddering visibly at the sight of the spiders. Despite his initial resolve to inspect one closely, his complexion drained upon closer inspection, prompting a panicked plea for everyone to leave the cave immediately. They hurriedly retreated, reversing their 20-minute journey in just 3. It was only upon exiting that the panicked friend revealed the truth. Those were brown recluse spiders, among the most venomous in North America. The room they had entered was a nest of these dangerous arachnids. If bitten by a brown recluse, one endures days of excruciating pain and potential skin necrosis. Following the incident, they would avoid caves with cobweb-covered entrances. Lake Nyos, situated in Cameroon's northwest, is a crater lake resulting from a volcanic eruption. Post-eruption, a visible crater remains from the ejected contents. This depression collects water, either from rain or subterranean sources, forming the lake. On August 21, 1986, the lake's typically blue waters turned a deep red, accompanied by a 100-foot column of water and foam. This event triggered a wave of at least 25 meters, sweeping one side of the lake, toppling trees, and causing a 1-meter drop in water level. The water turned red due to an unknown event that caused iron-rich water from deep in the lake to rise to the surface. The iron-rich water oxidized when it came into contact with the oxygen from the air. At the same time, over 100,000 tons of carbon dioxide gas was released from the water at nearly 100 kilometers an hour. Carbon dioxide is about 1.5 times heavier than air, so it doesn't just float away. Instead, it descends along the ground and displaces the lighter air around it as it moves a few kilometers away from the lake. In a village named Seiboum, Joseph McQueen was inside his home going about his day when he began to smell something terrible. Then he heard his daughter sleeping nearby begin to snore loudly and abnormally. He went over to her to say something, but then he realized he couldn't speak. A second later, he collapsed on the ground and went unconscious. Joseph woke up hours later at around 4:30 p.m. and found that his clothes were covered in a red honey-like substance, and he had sores all over his body. He then went to wake up his daughter, thinking she was still sleeping, but tragically she was dead. He tried to cry out, but no breath would come out. Joseph ran out of his house and began to check around the neighborhood. He found that all of his neighbors were also dead. He eventually came upon one friend whose family had died as well, and the two of them left the town and traveled to the hospital in the country's capital. Unbeknownst to Joseph, carbon dioxide that had been released from the nearby Lake Nyos had descended onto nearby villages and displaced all of the air, suffocating people and livestock within up to 25 kilometers from the lake. A limnic eruption caused by a landslide into Lake Nyos in Cameroon killed 1,746 people. Scientists believe that the landslide displaced and churned up the carbon dioxide, saturated deep water towards the surface of the lake, which then dissolved all of the carbon dioxide out of the water and created the deadly gas cloud that killed all of those people. The carbon dioxide was also mixed with sulfur and hydrogen dioxide, which explains the smell, residue, and sores. Since the incident, degassing tubes have been inserted into Lake Nyos to maintain the carbon dioxide at safe levels, hopefully preventing any future tragedies.